Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new here, my name is Zahra. I'm so happy to have you here. Today we are going to be doing another murder mystery makeup video. We are going to be talking about Robert Hansen. Just really quickly, I did want to mention that these videos are inspired by Bailey Sarian. I love her channel so much, and I'll link it down below for you guys so you guys can check them out. While I tell you guys the story, I am going to be doing my makeup. I'll have all of the makeup products listed down below in case you guys want to check any of them out. So I wanted to do some research on another serial killer because serial killers are so creepy, but at the same time they're so interesting to learn about. So for me, whenever I learn about serial killers or do research on a serial killer, I like to know their background, how they were raised, things like that, because I do feel like that sometimes has an impact on your life. Not that it makes it okay that you're a serial killer, but like I get why they're like mentally unstable. Okay, so Robert Hansen was born on February 15th, 1939. He was born in Easterville, Idaho. Robert was the son of Christian and Edna Hansen. So it was said that in his youth, Robert was extremely skinny and extremely shy, and people just kind of thought he was weird. He kind of had a stutter, and as he became a teenager, he kind of grew a lot of acne. So because of that, he ended up being shunned by the attractive girls at school. He grew up hating like the popular girls, the attractive girls, because they didn't like him. So not only did he hate them, but he also had like fantasies of enacting cruel revenge on them. So he didn't end up doing anything, but he did have thoughts of wanting to hurt them and get back at them. Throughout his childhood and his teen years, he was described as being very quiet, a loner. It was said that he had a lot of issues with his dad. So I guess to pass the time, Robert started practicing hunting and archery. So he just turned to hunting and archery as his source of entertainment, fun, and that's just kind of what he grew up doing. He would kill and hunt animals and things like that. In 1957, he ended up joining the U.S. Army Reserve, and he served for 1 year before being discharged. After he was discharged, he ended up working as an assistant drill instructor at the police academy in Pocahontas, Ohio. While he was working there, he ended up meeting a woman. Shortly after they met, they did end up getting married in the summer of 1960. And so in December 7th, 1960, so they've been married for like half a year now, Robert was arrested for burning down a school bus garage in revenge for his unpopularity in high school. So this was his first time taking revenge, but nobody was hurt, but he did set a building on fire. So he ended up serving 20 months of a 3-year prison sentence, and while he was in prison, he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and he periodically had schizophrenic episodes. So he was married while he was in jail, and his wife ended up filing for divorce while he was incarcerated. So he ended up getting out of jail, and he would often get into trouble with the law. So over the next few years, he did end up getting jailed a few times for petty theft, and he ended up marrying his second wife in 1963. But then in 1967, he ended up moving to Anchorage, Alaska with his second wife. So they had 2 kids. He started a new life there. So his neighbors really liked him. He was doing really good. He was still hunting, so when he went to Anchorage, Alaska, he ended up setting a few records, so the hunting people really liked him. So he was kind of popular. He ended up opening his own bakery. So at this point, he ended up taking flying lessons. After he took his flying lessons, he ended up purchasing his own private plane, and everyone just kind of thought he was a very outdoorsy man. In 1971, Robert was arrested for attempting to rape a housewife and also raping a sex worker. So he ended up going to jail, but he served less than 6 months for like the attempted rape of one person and then the rape of another person. He only served 6 months, and then they let him get out of jail. Which this story is really frustrating. So yeah, he gets out of jail, and then once he gets out of jail, he was arrested again for shoplifting a chainsaw. He was convicted of larceny, and he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. But the verdict was overturned because the Alaska Supreme Court thought that his sentence was too harsh. I don't know. It was believed that Robert began killing people around 1972. He would go after women because he wanted to get revenge on pretty girls because he was rejected in high school and he was still super hurt by it. So the way that he would lure his victims is he would pick them up. Since they were mostly sex workers, they would just come into his car not suspecting anything like dangerous. And then he would hold them at gunpoint and then take them to his cabin because remember, he's married and he has kids and they know nothing about what he's doing. So he had his own cabin that he would take these women to, and then sadly he would rape them. And then after that he would fly her out to a secluded area because remember, he got his license to fly and he bought a little plane. He would take those women to a secluded area where nobody would hear anything, see anything, and then he would let them loose, and then he would hunt them as if they were like an animal, and then he would shoot them or stab them. He was a sick, disgusting man. And like when I read all this, I felt so bad for his victim. Imagine how scared they must have been. And they did absolutely nothing wrong. The only reason that they were targeted is because people in high school weren't attracted to him. So this is what Robert said. If they came across with what I wanted, we'd come back to town and I'd tell them if they made any trouble for me, I had connections and I would have them put in jail for being prostitutes. So not all of them were killed, but most of them were. And then these poor women, the ones that weren't killed, they could do absolutely nothing because they were so scared. And I don't blame them. Nobody really realized that there was a serial killer until 1980. There was some construction being done and the workers discovered a woman's remains and she was stabbed to death in 1979. Later that year, another corpse was found. This one was of Joanna Messina. Her body was found in a gravel pit. And then another lady, Sherry Morrow, there were hunters in this area and they came across her body. She had been dead for 10 months and her body was found in a shallow grave near the river. The police had absolutely no idea who this person could be. So in 1983, Robert decided to save time and energy by bringing his victims home. So he called this his summer project. So during the summertime, he gave his wife and his 2 children tickets to Europe to go on vacation. And they were like, yay, cool, like let's go to Europe. And so they went, and then Robert would bring women here. So the way that he would lure these victims is he started running ads in the local singles newspaper, and he would say that he was looking for someone to like start his life with and all that stuff. And then that's how he would find these victims. On June 13th, 1983, so I'm assuming that his wife is still in Europe, Robert offered a 17-year-old sex worker some money to do stuff. And so this woman, her name is Cindy Paulson, she got into his car and he held her at gunpoint. So he held her captive and then he started torturing her and raping her. Robert ended up handcuffing her and then putting her in the car and taking her to the airport where he had his plane. So I guess he was planning to take her on the plane and take her to somewhere where nobody could find her. And then I guess he would hunt her. So he takes her to the airport. Cindy was crouching in the backseat of the car and her hands were cuffed and everything, but she saw that Robert was busy loading the plane and she's like, this is my chance, I need to get away. She crawls out of the backseat of the car and she opened the driver's side door and she ran towards the street. That must have taken a lot of balls, like, to run away. Because, like, what if he caught her? He would have tortured her, like, even more. I don't know. She's so strong. but she runs away. Robert sees that she ran, so then he starts chasing her, but he didn't end up reaching her. She got to the street and she flagged down a truck driver. The truck driver like stopped and he sees that she's handcuffed and she looks like scared and everything. So he picks her up and he drove her to an inn, and then she ran out of his truck and she ran inside. The truck driver ended up calling the police and he's like, I found this barefoot woman. She has handcuffs on. You guys need to come here. So the Anchorage Police Department arrives, and when they found her, she was alone, she was still handcuffed, and she was freaking out. She was taken to the police headquarters and she described Robert. So then the police go after Robert. He gets questioned by the officers. So Robert gets questioned by the officers and he denies all of this. He's like, she's just trying to get me into trouble. She wants me to pay her more than like what she said. And Robert's like, she's just trying to cause trouble for me. Like, there's nothing going on. I don't know what she told you guys. Since he looked innocent and he was a baker, the police are like, it probably wasn't you. His friend John gave him an alibi, which is obviously fake, and then that kept the police from suspecting Robert, and then the case went cold. Back to those 3 dead bodies that were found. The detective on the case, his name was Glenn. So he had examined all of the bodies. He came to the conclusion that one person was responsible for all 3 of those deaths. He contacted the Federal Bureau of Investigation and he asked for them to help build a criminal psychological profile so that they can get a better understanding of who this serial killer is. So based on those 3 victims, John Douglas thought that the killer would be an experienced hunter with low self-esteem. It seemed that this serial killer had a history of being rejected by women, and he would feel compelled to keep souvenirs of his murders, such as the victim's jewelry. He also suggested that the serial killer had a stutter, which is so crazy. How, like, what do they use to figure this out? But using that profile, Detective Glenn started investigating all the possible suspects. He went through a lot of different suspects until he reached Robert. And Robert fit the profile and he owned a plane. So, Detective Glenn ended up getting a warrant to search Robert's plane, vehicles, and home. Because I'm really struggling with my makeup today. So, on October 27th, 1983, the investigators uncovered jewelry belonging to some of the missing women. And they also found a whole bunch of guns and everything hidden in the corner of his attic. And then when they went into his bedroom, behind his headboard, they found a little chart that had a whole bunch of X's marked on it. Some of the marks matched the sites where those bodies were found. There were also other little X's that they later investigated and found other bodies. When Robert was confronted by the detectives, they're like, hey, we found all of this evidence. Robert's like, nope, I didn't do it, it's not me. But after a little bit, he tried to justify his actions by saying that they were being mean to him and that they weren't attracted to him, and that's why he killed them and did what he did with them. Any piece of evidence that was presented to him, he did end up pleading guilty. He's like, yeah, like, this is mine, I used this, or like whatever. And he admitted to starting his killing spree against Alaskan women starting in 1971. So they believe that Robert's earliest victims were usually between the ages of 16 and 19. They put Hansen on a plane or helicopter and they took him on a flying tour of the wilderness, and Hansen began pointing out the grave sites of his victims. On February 18th, 1984, Robert Hansen pled guilty 4 counts of first-degree murder. Charges ended up being dismissed for all of the other cases, which I think is stupid. I feel like he should have been charged with everyone that he murdered, but he was sentenced by the jury to 461 years plus life in prison. He wasn't going to get out anytime soon. He was stuck in there for the rest of his life, which is amazing. When he got sentenced to 461 years plus life in prison, he also was denied the possibility of parole, which is great because that means he'll never get out. 2014, he was transported to the hospital for health reasons. He passed away August 21st, 2014. He was 27. He died at the age of 75 at Alaska Regional Hospital in Anchorage due to natural causes. That is pretty much the story. I'm going to finish up my makeup and I'll be right back. So that is pretty much it for the story of Robert Hansen. I am so glad that he didn't end up getting the death penalty and he had to serve so many years in jail, because he is a terrible person and I hate it. This is just like a personal opinion. I hate it when people get the death sentence instead of serving their time in prison, only because I feel like the death sentence is an easy way out, and I've said that in my other videos too. But it just pisses me off when they get the death sentence. Like, they torture people so much and then at the end they just die in like a few seconds and like that's it. No. It's so annoying when I like do stories and do research on different murderers and I see that they got caught so many times, they went to jail so many times, and then nobody was like, hey, like maybe this person is not that good. Like, I'm not saying that just because you went to jail you're a bad person, not at all. But I feel like they were really dumb. Like, they should have put 2 and 2 together. And also when that poor girl, Cindy, when she got away and she told the police everything and the police are like, he looks like a decent enough man. He's a baker. Like, he couldn't do that. That's so stupid. Like, they should have caught him then. My makeup is a little... The eyeliner, I really wanted to try this graphic wing thing and it turned out really thick. But it's fine, it's fine. I'll still upload the video because the story is pretty interesting. But anyways, make sure that you guys stay safe. Don't do anything stupid. Don't kill people. Don't harm anyone. If you're having thoughts of that, please go see a doctor or a therapist, psychiatrist, something so that you could get some help. Again, I will have everything that I used makeup-wise listed down below in the description box. And I do have a few other videos like this on my channel, so if you guys like murder, mystery, and makeup videos, I have a whole playlist, so just check that out. But yeah, I really hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!